I work for Washington County in the Department of Land Use and Transportation. I've been with them for over 10 years. Woo! Yes, of Washington County. So just to make sure that you guys are all awake after your nice lunch comas, I'm going to ask you a couple questions. It won't take a whole lot of thought, so don't worry. So I'd like a show of hands. Who drove or rode in a car to get here today? All right. And how many of you maybe rode your bike or walked or took transit? Okay. Well, unless you teleported here, which was any of you that didn't raise your hand, you experienced the use of a transportation facility that is owned and operated by a public agency. And so I want you to keep that in mind as I'm doing my presentation today, in hopes that you'll find comfort in knowing that your local transportation agency takes safety very seriously, and how we go about getting there is not dependent upon a transportation official alone. We actually so my presentation is going to go over sharing a vision by using collaborative governance in order to create Washington County's very first Transportation Safety Action Plan. So we'll first go over the general background of the plan itself and its creation, the goals and purpose behind my capstone, some research methods that I used, the projected outcome that I'm hoping to get out of this, the significance of this collaborative governance model that I've created for the plan, and then also to reflect on the EMPA program and acknowledge some wonderful people. So to start off, what is a Transportation Safety Action Plan? And I know Troy knows this answer, but for the rest of you, so it's a plan that's created for a governing agency that reviews transportation-related serious injury and fatality crashes within that agency's jurisdiction. And it also includes action items on ways to prevent or reduce these statistics, primarily the most common trending statistics, at least crash types that we see on the roadway. These plans essentially are created by various stakeholders, including the public, to address the issues, the high crash trends, by collaborating on coming up with action items in order to prevent these issues from continuing to occur. So for example, what you might see in a plan is, let's say there's an agency that has a really high trend in roadway departures, which is either crossing over the center line or actually driving off the roadway. And maybe there's also this correlation that happens to be that a lot of these roadway departures are caused by underage DUI infractions. So an action item that we could put together on something like that would include enhancing maybe some kind of education program in the local area schools that would also require the collaboration of not only the school district, but the fire department, law enforcement, transportation, and even maybe your health department's alcohol and drug prevention program. So now you kind of have a general idea of how transportation safety isn't just left up to transportation officials alone. We actually need others to help us out from other different agencies. So, what already exists out there? Well, Clackamas County was the first county in Oregon to create a Transportation Safety Action Plan at that local level. And then, of course, the Oregon Department of Transportation has had a Transportation Safety Action Plan since 1995. And then they've created several. In fact, they're in the process of going through a whole nother rendition. And then Washington County, like I mentioned, is actually going to create, because of my persistence, is actually going to create one, hopefully starting later this year, if I get some money from it out there. And so basically to create this plan, it's that need for all the various stakeholders to come together in order to bring in all these different multiple perspectives on transportation. And it is amazing how many multiple perspectives you can bring in. I mean, it's literally not just the transportation-focused lens that you've got. And so with that, it's going to require a collaborative governance model in order to do this, because, well, and the addition of facilitation, you need to include facilitation in it as well for best practices of facilitation in order to keep on track with success of the plan itself. And in doing my literature review, and Carissa also pointed this out too, there's a number of different definitions of collaborative governance out there. But they will openly admit right up front there is not a one-size-fits-all model that's perfect for any situation, especially a complex situation, that an agency faces. Each model actually needs to be uniquely created in order to deal with that specific project or situation. And then with facilitation models, that's something that's pretty generally straightforward, but actually incorporating them into the collaborative governance model is also something that's unique. So why do we need this plan in the first place, and what drives the need for collaborative governance in order to even create the plan? We already have our high-level mission, which is to reduce serious injury and fatality crashes. And we also incorporate the Federal Highway Administration's 5 E's approach to transportation safety, which is education, engineering, enforcement, encouragement, and evaluation. So these 5 E's actually will play a very large role and are critical elements to the plan, but also in pulling together the necessary stakeholders in order to create the plan. So this will include folks from fire, law enforcement, the school district, ODOT, the health department, citizens, citizen participation organizations, nonprofit advocacy groups, and the list goes on. And of course, all of these stakeholders, as we know, tend to carry a torch for the very thing that they're experts in. Which means that we can't just hit the ground running once we get everyone to the table. Because I don't know if any of you have ever brought together a large group of people to sit down at a table and you agreed upon everything right off the bat. If you did, we need to talk after. So that's why we need a specific collaborative governance model for this plan in order to help this diverse stakeholder group come to a consensus on a shared vision. And our wicked challenge is actually finding a balance in that, in covering all of these areas, to make sure that we can get the stakeholders to actually agree upon the action items that meet this, the plan's overarching goal. So part of my research involved interviewing agencies that have already put together the plan, which there's only a few, like I mentioned, that have actually completed it. And then also consultants that have helped put together plans, because there's a lot of plans that are currently in the making, or there are plans nationwide that have been in effect. Because the county is actually, because we are actually looking at putting together a plan of ourselves, several consultants have actually reached out to me. And so they want to try and solicit their skills so they can put together our plan. And so I thought, okay, well, if you want to go ahead and borrow my precious time, I'll let you go ahead and market your skills if you agree to let me interview you for my Capstone project. They all agreed, because of course they know there's money involved, hopefully later down the line. So it was great because I was able to do a lot of different agency comparisons with not only Clackamas County and ODOT's, but Clark County, City of Bend, West Vancouver, Arizona Department of Transportation, and the other ODOT, Ohio Department of Transportation. It just happens to be one of our consultants actually did a plan similar in nature for that for Ohio as well. And then my research also involved looking at the various different collaborative governance models, which Chris also already mentioned too. There's quite a few. So that way I can come up with my own hybrid model to make it unique for actually creating this plan. So in addition to that, I also wanted to do a lot of research on social norming methods and facilitations to incorporate them into the plan, because I feel that's going to help us keep on track with actually coming up with implementable action plans. So like I mentioned before, we realize there's not one single agency that's able to take on creating a plan like this on their own. We actually have to leap outside our 4 Washington County walls and collaborate with other stakeholders in order to meet our goal for the safety plan. So while the county's plan is transportation-centric, we really, really need to realize how important it is for the non-transportation related programs to be a part of this. And this includes even things like I mentioned earlier, the drug and alcohol program, prevention programs. You don't really think of them when you think of transportation, but in all reality, if you've got trends that are high with the DUI and then all of a sudden you've got a program that's looking at getting cut back or even eliminated, that could actually impact the action items that you have in this plan. And so they can leverage on to things like these action items. So you have to understand that importance, you know, and how that's balanced out too. So just to briefly go over the model that I'm coming up with, Obviously, leadership, trust, and cultural competency and autonomy are going to be really important and very critical to the stakeholders that we end up selecting. We need a strong leader. We need those trusting relationships. And Tiffany says my time's up. So,
Keep going.
and you know, we need a group of stakeholders at the table that are very representative of the community that we serve too. I think that's very, very critical to this model. And then we also need we need the stakeholders to hold accountability to make sure that they actually follow through with their part in the plan as well. So, there was a wise man that once said, and I just love this quote because it just reminds me of why my persistence in getting this plan together. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. So my goal for establishing the group of stakeholders by using my unique model that I created is to encourage this value of forward and collective thinking. Because we can't do it alone, and we need to do it as a group. And the folks in Vietnam really taught me the reality of this culture. You know, they've got a crazy, chaotic transportation style, but it's also really, I know I can't let go of it. But it's also, it was so harmonious, and it was one of those where everyone yields to the other and respects the survival of the other just as much as they respected their own. And I'm hoping to create a culture out of the stakeholders that put together this plan, and also when we actually implement it, creating a culture of society that's going to help us reduce these statistics. So, my reflections. I can't be more thankful enough to have gone through this program. It has given me the confidence boost that I really needed. And it's taught me that I can be a leader, especially with that Strength Finders test and just running with the results of that. I never would have taken this on my own. I mean, this was something that has been in the works for years, and it's only been like this past year that I've been very, very persistent about doing it. Because I learned that I can lead from where I sit, no matter what position I'm in. And I'm not in a high-level management position, but I feel that I can make change in my position now, which I didn't have that before. And now I have this toolkit. Before I didn't have the toolkit. Now I've got this toolkit. I've got all these wonderful tools, and I can't wait to actually influence others that can model the way to do the same thing going forward too. So we can provide the best services we can in Washington County. Right, Keith?
Correct.
So, to wrap it up, I should have done this in the other order, and I'm going to try and keep my emotions together, but Matt would have loved to have been here, but he has been sick with a cough. I drug him to the ceremony yesterday because I knew it would be a little bit louder. So he didn't want to be disruptive with his cough, but he has been truly amazing. I mean, working full-time, going to school full-time. Many of you know all of the sucker punches that life has hit me with over the past couple of years, of course, during the busiest time of my life. And if it wasn't for him and him not changing the locks on the house, he's kept me around. I'm so thankful. And my family, I mean, my family has been so supportive of me, just telling me, and just encouraging me to keep going. There were times where I just literally thought, I don't know if I can handle anymore, and I don't know if I can handle finishing this program. And they just stuck there by me, you know, and actually had me set aside their issues, you know, that I was so worried about just so I'd finish school. And then my poor dogs, as I'm sitting there for hours on end on my laptop, and they're staring at me wondering when I'm going to go play with them. And then my amazing cohort, who has been so supportive every Saturday, coming in, and including Bryson, who always made me so happy whenever I saw him. See, I told you I did it in reverse order. But it's all, I mean, everyone on here is so important. The faculty, I just can't believe how dedicated the faculty are to wanting to make such good leaders. Every single one of you really wanted us. I mean, I can't, even Dr. Morgan, how many times did I have to rewrite my papers in my first class? He wanted me to get it right, though, and it means so much to me. You know, I mean, it's just unreal. Laurel and Brent, just with their arms wide open, willing to help us out at any point, not allowing us to fail or fall. Dr. Jones for getting me on the right track with my capstone and our back and forth emails, and you probably wanting to strangle me over my research methods slide. And then my #1 safety plan cheerleaders, which is Mr. Troy Costalis, and then one of his employees, Walt, over at ODOT, and then Joe Merrick at Clackamas County. They have really encouraged me to just keep moving forward and not slowing down with this thing. And I'm so excited to say that we actually do get to end up putting a plan together. And I'm going to use this collaborative governance model. So.